Now, I have to say, this week's episode of Angel to Death, I think, is the most interesting and important episode of the entire series right now. I love this episode. This episode was as close to perfect as I personally would want, and something that gets revealed is something that I've been speculating for a while. I brought it up quite a few times. It was like 5, maybe 6 episodes back, maybe even less than that. A very quick snippet of what appeared to be one of Rachel's parents killing the other, and that obviously is what I was speculating was going to relate to some sort of emotional trauma. This week's episode, we get a lot more details on what's happened. It's clear as day. Her father killed her mother. The fact that that knife goes straight through her chest, the fact that Rachel had a handgun on her, she's running away, it very much feels like she saw her father kill her mother, and then she killed her father with that handgun. I think that gun was used on much more than just Kathy, and I think the reason she's so scared of this floor that now Zach and herself are now on, she mentions at the end of the episode, if you skip after the credits, this is where she was. This clearly was her floor, and she doesn't want Zach to learn that she is unclean, that she killed someone, that she has these sins that she's been lying about because Zach hates liars. Zach's never lied to her. She doesn't want to be perceived as an evil person or a sinner. That's actually pretty brilliant, and I'm really excited to see how that's going to be explored and how this floor is going to be executed, how the emotional trauma is going to be brought up. I'm quite excited for that. Really nice detail. I like how they were subtly building us up to this. Pretty excited to see how that's gonna go. But I have to say, how the episode kicks off, it was really good. Like, I've mentioned it before, like, a lot of this felt like illusions, like, Rachel was seeing a lot of things that weren't really there. There was constantly, like, this purple mist that would be seeping into the room. Obviously, she was on some sort of drugs or, visions were being put into her head. But it was hard to tell exactly what was real and what was fake because a lot of it did feel real. There was a lot of normal-esque scenes for this building. But this week's episode, it shows us, like, most of this was just complete BS. This was all visions. Like, I really liked that because it started to make me personally think like, okay, some of this actually is real. That trial obviously was fake. We're seeing people who are either dead now. Like, a lot of this has to be fake. However, I actually thought Rachel was being burned alive. I thought she was on that cross and she was going to die. So when it is revealed that it was just all an illusion and she broke free, that was actually pretty interesting to me. I really liked that kind of bait and switch that they pulled. But what was even more kind of surprising was the priest, because I thought, Gray was this guy who was probably the most normal. Obviously, he would have some sort of psychotic nature to him. But the fact that he worships himself as a god, that was actually a nice surprise. I wasn't expecting that. Like, I thought he was a man of God. I didn't think he would worship himself as a god. So just to see how, almost like he wanted her to embrace him as the god of this world, it was such a nice reveal, something I wasn't really expecting. And I think how she actually overcame it, like at first I'm like, how the hell did she get off that cross? Like, there's no way she could have cut herself free with that knife. Like, her hands were bound and tied. But then when it's revealed that it actually was just some illusion in her head, that was a nice surprise. It was actually really well done, and it makes this floor and what she was experiencing even more interesting and engaging because you're like, okay, so now some of the things maybe I was a little confused about now make sense because Gray was pulling some mind trickery on her. Really nice pull there. But the fact that she, like, fully admits who her god is in this episode, that Zach is her god, that's such a creepy but also really interesting motive, because now her kind of connection with Zach and why she worships him so much, it makes so much more sense. It's clear as day when she was on that floor, she ran away from the trauma in her past. And I think she probably did pick up a Bible, she probably read it and said, hey, I need a god. Like, I need something that I can worship. And then when Zach kind of appeared and saved her, kind of saved her because he did want to kill her at the same time, it almost feels like she just locked onto him as like, hey, this can be my god. And that's kind of all the weird kind of obsession, like, will you kill me? Like, I want to be killed by my god. It'd be the ultimate pleasure kind of a thing. Like, that's kind of what I'm getting out of their relationship. And it's a nice touch there. And this episode, like, this was a great episode. I think, even though I wouldn't say this is the best anime of the season, far from it, this is the best directed anime of the season. The way they shift around shots, the way they really get in the character's head, the way they really play around with perspectives, what's real, what's fake, what can you truly trust in this world is so damn great. And the voice acting was killer. Now, the voice acting isn't always killer. Zach, when he goes a little too psychotic, it's like, okay, let's tone it down there. Let's be a bit more normal. But as of late, Rachel's voice actress was amazing. Like, if you go back and watch the first 30 seconds of this episode, the way she was like, almost like begging not to be burned alive, that felt so believable and real. Like, you're like, wow, that actually feels like a little girl begging for her life not to be burned alive. That was such a great performance. Zach, now that he's a little more tame, not really trying to be psychotic and overly psychotic, he has such a great voice. There's like trembling, there's ranges in his voice. The only thing that I could say was bad voice acting is when we go back into Zack's past and the dude who was burning him alive, that had to be the worst crazy laugh I've heard. Even worse than some of Zack's crazy laughs. It was such a bad laugh. It was just like, okay, this is so fake. It hurts. Luckily, it was like 2 seconds, and then Zack kind of burned him alive with him, which it was nice to see the conclusion. Like, why is Zack covered in bandages? Like, what happened in his past there? So it's nice to see what happened with his mother, also the person who was sleeping with his mother, and how he ultimately got burned alive. It was a nice little conclusion, and I don't think we're going to see much more with Zack's backstory. Now that we are on more or less what I think is Rachel's floor, I think it's all going to be Rachel from here. And that's going to be exciting. Like, I'm curious how this ultimately will end. Like, it almost feels like the best counselor for Rachel is actually Zack, and Zack's just trying to escape and promises to kill her when this is all said and done. I'm curious, like, obviously Zack's going to learn that he was lied to, but at the same time, I don't think Zack honestly wants to kill her at this point. I honestly feel like there is some sort of friendship or at least bond there that, you know, this girl's done a hell of a lot for me. She saved me. She was sewing me up. I don't think a lie would really ruin whatever kind of weird bond they now have. And one thing I gotta say with the animation, when Rachel was sewing up Zack, there was actually a really nice touch where you could actually see like the skin kind of move along with the needle. It was such a subtle thing, but it actually made it feel a much more believable, like, holy hell, she's actually sewing him up. It doesn't feel like a static shot. Really nice touch with the animation. Honestly, I don't have much complaints with this episode past maybe the psychotic laugh from the kind of like boy toy that Zack's mother was kind of playing with. Like, past that, like, this was just a phenomenal episode. This anime, like, I don't think is perfect in any way, but there isn't much I would personally change about it at this point in time. Like, I feel like it has a pretty clear idea of what it wanted to do with Zack and Rachel, and even though I probably won't leave this saying it's a masterpiece, it's a fun ride that does have its moments of really stellar just directing and kind of voice acting and kind of like character revelation moments. It's pretty damn solid. This episode was really great. This floor I think is easily going to be the best floor just because now, like I've mentioned it before, like sometimes the best floors are where they really mess with the character's minds and kind of perspective. The fact that this clearly is Rachel's floor, that's going to be really crazy. Let me know what you're feeling down in that comment section below. Your favorite moment, what did you think? Where do you think next week's going to go? Let me know. And before you leave, be sure to like the video if you did enjoy, and also be sure to subscribe to the channel if you happen to be new. But until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.